Shop just outside Kennesaw here in North Georgia. Well, today's project is this Colonial Revival style table. It's one of the ones that's got the leaves that pull out, and I'll show you those in just a second. This belongs to a friend of ours. She's a dealer, and she picked it up and she noticed it had some cloudiness in the finish, and she's wondering if I could do something color-wise to kind of cover that up. And I'm going to take you along with me as I try to diagnose what's wrong with this thing and kind of show you what can happen when perhaps a very good intended refinishing job goes awry. So let me bring you in here and we'll show you what we're up to. And this is just one corner of the tabletop. The entire tabletop is suffering from the same malady. And what you can see is this cloudiness. It's all over everything. If you're having trouble seeing it there, it should be pretty clear to you right on this, right? You see here, that's what it's supposed to look like. Let's rotate this leg around and look what happens to the finish. It's just absolutely milky. So the first step in this is to determine what kind of finish this is to perhaps get an idea of what's wrong. We know from our experience that lacquer will blush if it goes on when it's too humid. So the question is this lacquer? When you're testing to see what a finish is, here's kind of a ballpark test you can do. It's not 100%. I start with denatured alcohol, and I put a little drop of denatured alcohol on the piece. And then I use a Q-tip and kind of rub it around. And if it starts to get sticky or the finish starts to come up, then you can suspect it's shellac. Now this piece is probably dates from the 50s. It shouldn't have shellac on it unless somebody refinished it in shellac. So it's definitely not shellac. You can see the Q-tip is clean. There's no stickiness here. Sometimes with a lacquer finish, when you put the alcohol on it, you'll get a little bit of a white haze there. That's another clue. So then we're going to move on next to testing to see if it's lacquer. And I've got a little bit of lacquer thinner here. I just put a drop on the piece in an inconspicuous area, and we start to do the same thing. And usually within a matter of 15 seconds or so, this will start to get tacky if it's lacquer, and it's not. So now we know it's some kind of a varnish or most probably polyurethane. If it's polyurethane, you can be pretty well assured that the piece has been refinished. Now the top of this piece is pretty smooth and I don't see any brush marks on it, but when I started looking at the legs, and hopefully you can see, there's drip marks and things on the leg turnings, which is indicative, of course, of a refinishing job probably done at home. Like here's another leg and you can see the beaded drips on it. So we're going to assume that this has been refinished with polyurethane. Now we know polyurethane and lacquer don't usually get along well, so if I was going to try to cover over this piece with something, it would probably have to be a toned shellac. I think someone polyurethaned this piece either over the existing lacquer or didn't properly prepare the piece between coats of the polyurethane, and the polyurethane is separating from the layer that's underneath it, and that's what's causing this cloudiness all over. If it was lacquer, this is no blush. It's basically a lacquer solvent, and you'd spray it on some blush like that, and if that was lacquer, it would soften the lacquer up and this blush would disappear. And you can see it's not doing that. Of course it's not going to, because we know that this is polyurethane. However, we could spray a toner over this to cover this up and then top coat over it. Now I took this leg here and I sprayed, just as a demonstration, I sprayed some lacquer toner on it in dark golden oak, and it did tone down the cloudiness, but it didn't get rid of it. I mean, you can see it's still here, and you got to remember that chemically there's in my opinion, I may be wrong, but I feel that the bond between the polyurethane layers is failing, and we can cover this with color, and this whole finish may just start to crack and fall off basically in a little while, and our pretty color is going to come with it. So in my opinion, the only way to properly repair this is to do a complete strip and refinish of this table, and that's what we're going to do because that's the right thing to do. So stand by and we'll get to work. We have the table flipped on its top. I'm going to show you how these leaf assemblies work. They simply pull out and drop down and slide in. To get them out, these screws have to come out. Now it's no big deal, except there's not a lot of room here to get a screwdriver in, so I'm just using this little stubby screwdriver that I have. And that one was loose. The leaves are off, and I've taken the time to use some blue tape along the edges of the underside of everything, because I hate when stripper runs from the top up around onto the bottom and leaves marks all over. It looks very amateur-ish. This is the leaf assembly, and obviously there's two of them, and we've got them ready to go. So next step is to flip this over on its underside so the top is up, and we'll start applying stripper to it and get this whole finish off. Okay, we're set up outside, got plenty of ventilation as long as the rain holds off. I've got some leftover commercial stripper. This is a paste stripper, and let's see what happens. Get this on here and we'll let it cook for a while. You can see the finish is coming up. Using my plastic scraper here so I don't damage the wood. But you can see also that we still have a layer of residual finish under there. So it's going to take a couple of coats. I've got the leaves inside. They're cooking. So I've got several hours of stripping work ahead of me, and I will bring you back when it's all done. And I'm working on the legs, and basically all I've done is just soak them with liquid stripper. And now what I'm doing is using a brass brush inside these turnings to get this rotten finish out of there. It is just pooled everywhere. It was a horrible, horrible job on the legs. You can see this stuff is starting to come up. Get this off. I mean, stripping this table down completely bare was absolutely the right decision. This finish was just horrible, particularly bad on the legs. Okay, so that's how I'm doing it, and then for the feel of the legs, I'm just using a piece of steel wool that I've got soaked in stripper, and I'm rubbing it. Now, obviously, when you have to take finish off this way, you're going to take color with it, but we're going to recolor these legs anyway, so it's no big deal. So I'm still at it. We're a couple hours later, and all the table and the table parts have all been stripped. The top was tough. It had multiple coats of top coat on it, and you can see there's still some residual stuff we'll have to sand off. The legs, believe it or not, actually came off fairly easily as long as we were able to get that bristle brush inside those turnings and dig out whatever that awful white stuff was. It's time to sand. I always wear a dust mask when I sand. I've got my random orbit sander loaded up with a fresh piece of 120 grit, and let's get the rest of this finish off. there's everything all stripped and sanded. I brought the top and the two leaves up to 150 prior to sealing. Those two trim pieces go on the underside of the table. They're over, right over there. And then over here, obviously, are the four legs. They were a bit of a challenge to get into turnings and get all that stuff out. I'm really not sure what that was. It was milky white, which would lead me to believe it might be water-based polyurethane, but it was all over everything, and it was an absolute mess. So there was no question but that this finish needed to come off. Yeah, it's a big project. It's about yeah, it's just 3 o'clock now, and we started this around 10:30 or so. So what, 4.5 hours to get to this spot. So here we go. We'll pick it up in the morning with some sealer, and we'll start to top coat and color match this. Oh, by the way, we are going to color match it to one of the chairs, and that chair is a Haywood Wakefield. There was a question as to whether this table was Haywood Wakefield. I have not seen a marking on it yet, so I don't know if Haywood Wakefield may have made this. It may be unmarked, or it may have been a marriage somewhere along the line. I just don't know. It's not my stuff. But anyways, we will see you in the morning. Well, good morning. It's February 21st. It's the 2018. It's the next day, and it's 66 glorious degrees out here in North Georgia. But for those of us interested in shooting lacquer, the relative humidity is 96%, so we're going to have to use some retarder today. And if you look there at the Bradford pear trees, you can see they're starting to bud. So spring is just around the corner. Or I can sit outside here and admire the beautiful weather, or get in the shop and get some work done. So let's go. Okay, I got up a little bit early this morning, and I put the legs back on this table. They just go on with a single bolt and some wing nuts, and taped off the aprons, and then I wiped the entire project down with naphtha to get any remaining dust off of it. So now it's time to seal this up. With the humidity where it is, I'm hoping if the sun comes out, the humidity will come down. But we'll see how it goes. It's not the end of the world. So let's get to work sealing up these legs. I wanted to show you the difference between lacquer blush and the stuff we were dealing with at the beginning of this project. You see this cloudiness here? This is that no blush stuff, that super blush. When I spray that on there, that just goes away. And had we had lacquer blush as the root problem that we were dealing with before, that's how we would have solved it. You can see that's all gone. It's really tough shooting lacquer when the humidity is almost 100%. If I didn't have such a tight schedule, I probably would just leave it and wait till the weather cleared up. But let's press forward. This is the chair I'm going to try to color match this table to. And you can see we're not very far off at all. In person, I think we just need to be a little bit browner. You can see maybe in this shot a little bit that the legs are a little bit lighter. So what I'm going to do is I've already mixed up some toner. I've got some, I think it's medium brown walnut because I see a little bit of red in this. And lacquer thinner and a little bit of lacquer. And we're going to start shooting these legs. We're going to see if we can creep up on this color. Now remember, when the table's on its legs, what's going to catch the eye is the top and the chairs need to be pretty close, and you want the top to be a little bit lighter than the legs. But the flip side of that is you don't want the legs to go too dark either. So I'm going to try to pretty much color match the legs to the chair. You know, as you can see, there's different tones here, so maybe we'll go a little bit towards the darker tones in the chair and leave this for the tabletop. But let's see how we do. And that's the color we're spraying on right there. Not too dark.
When we shoot from the light from the outside, you can see, I hope you can see, we're getting real close, and I don't want to go too dark. So I'm going to let this color set for just a couple of minutes, and maybe put a little bit more on that leg, the outside of that leg there. But I think we're getting real close. And like I said, you never want to go too dark. I can always add more color.
I know it's very difficult for you to see, but this is the chair, and obviously this is kind of an anomaly, but what I see in the finish, in addition to the brown, is some black. It darkens it up without making it a deeper brown, if that makes any sense to anybody. But you look here, you can see the black here. So what I did on the second coat, and in the second coat of color, I added just a smidge of black dye to what we're putting on, and I think we've gotten really pretty close. So I've got a lacquer coat on this. We're going to let this set up, then we'll come back and take a look at this, and if we're happy with it, we will shoot another lacquer coat on it, give it an hour or so to harden up, and then flip it over and start working on the top and the leaves. But I think we're pretty close. Okay, we're back at the table. I think you can see that the legs and the chairs are a very close match. I'm happy with where we're at. We are struggling with blush issues today, as we expected. Right now I have the shop buttoned up, and I have the heat on, if you can believe that, to try to dry the air out, and it seems to be helping. And I was able to shoot the first coat of sealer on the tabletop, no problems with blush at all. And then these two pieces I've already sealed, 2 coats, they're ready for color. You take a look underneath, you can see how dark we were able to get those legs with the color application that we did. And if anybody's concerned about the apron, it's going to be difficult for me to pull this tape off one-handed, but if you look at the apron, it's the same tone as the legs. So we're in good shape. The next step is a second coat of sealer on this, and once it's all sanded and rubbed out with 4/0 steel wool, we'll shoot some color on this and start building a top coat, as long as the weather holds up. Okay, this is the hard part now. We got to color match these leaves and the table. You can see the table is lighter than this leaf, and this leaf's actually a little bit lighter than the table. So when we're all done, they're all supposed to match, and they're supposed to match the legs, and they're supposed to match the chairs. So here we go. And we shot the same color on the top as we did the legs, and you can see, and you got to you're dealing with color flip here too, because the grain on this is this way, the grain on the table is this way, but they're pulled very, very close together in color, and so too is that. So now the question is, how close in color are we to this? Let's get a lacquer coat on here and see. We can always finish this up with a little bit of glaze. If we're close, we just want to pull it in. So let me spray a lacquer coat on this and let's see what happens. Oh, by the way, it's started raining again. Okay, it's coated up in lacquer. I know it's hard for you to really determine these colors. And there's the chair. Now this is what we were shooting for here, and we're still a little bit light, and I'm thinking some Van Dyke brown glaze to pull this in the rest of the way, rather than spraying any more color. Okay, the lacquer's had a chance to dry, and I buffed it off with 4/0 steel wool, and it's ready for glaze. Now you may be asking yourself, why are you glazing the top, you didn't glaze the legs? I'll be honest with you, when the color went on this top, I wasn't 100% happy with it. It was a different shade of brown when it went on the top versus on the legs, and I'm really afraid we're going to overshoot from the brown side on this and just miss what we're trying to do. So I think the next step is to get the Van Dyke brown glaze on here. Let's see how that looks, and if that's a little bit off, then we can adjust it in with some toner at the end. But that's a decision I made, and that's what we're going to do. Glaze, as you know, is a pigmented color. It's like a stain, like a thick stain. It's designed to go between top coats. The beauty of it is you can put it on and then clean it out or take it off without destroying the work you've already done. If I sprayed toner on this and it was too dark, I'd have to take everything back off again. I'd shoot myself. So by using this glaze, I can dry brush it, I can wipe it off with naphtha on a rag and get back to where I was and try it again. So I'm going to start putting some glaze on this. You'll see how it goes on, and then we will see how we did. You can see the color difference already with the glaze on here. Now I'm at the bottom of this can of glaze, and I've thinned it with some naphtha because it was really just pigment. But you can see the difference that's made, and it gave us a little bit of red. Let's pull this. Shooting for here. Yeah. That's real good. Okay, let me get the rest of the table done. I'll bring you back. How's it look to you? I think we're about a shade light on the table. The match on the table is wonderful. I'm very, very happy with that. We may be just a little bit light with the color. I don't want to go any thicker with the glaze, so I'm going to let this glaze dry. I'll shoot a lacquer coat over it and see how it looks. We are absolutely in the same tone family between the backsplat and the table. And I keep moving here to try to give you different light because the light in here is terrible. But there's the table. There's the legs and the apron, which we were very happy with, and the tabletop. That's where we are right now. Okay, we've given the glaze time to set up, about 2 hours, and we're getting ready to shoot the final, or we're getting ready to seal this in with a coat of lacquer, so let's get to it. For my appearance, I know I look like I probably just washed ashore, but it's been a hot, muggy day, and I've been at it all day, so excuse me. I'm getting ready to go in the house and get cleaned up for dinner. But anyways, here it is all done. This all started out as the result of a bad refinishing job. I don't know what happened, and I'm not placing blame. Sometimes chemicals fail even when you do things right. You know, as you've been following the channel, you've seen blushing from lacquer. You've seen clouding from water getting underneath wax. When we did the set of 6 dining chairs, we had that issue to deal with. But in this case, it was caused by a separation between two layers of finish, much like if you had a laminated windshield on your car that started to separate to get that cloudy spot. There's no fixing that. So it required a complete stripping of the finish right down to the bare wood, and then we started to build the finish back up with sealer, etc. And then we had a unique situation because we had chairs that, I mean, they go from black to gold in the color thing, in the color spectrum on those chairs. We had to somehow pull this in together, and I think we did a pretty good job of that while keeping the legs a little bit darker and the top a little bit lighter. So I'm real happy with it. It'll give you an idea of what you get yourself into if you buy some furniture that's got some serious problems and what it's going to take to correct it. So listen, from our shop just outside Kennesaw here in North Georgia, best regards, thanks for watching, take good care, we'll see you next video. Bye.